Shocking! 10 facts about Iceland. Getting naked to heal? Hi everyone! Iceland is an island nation located where the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans meet. The country is surrounded by water, with a coastline over 4,900 kilometers long, and its main island lies entirely south of the Arctic Circle. Geographically, Iceland is part of the massive 65,000-kilometer-long mid-Atlantic ridge that rises above sea level. This ridge also marks the boundary between Europe and North America, as well as the dividing line between the Eurasian and North American tectonic plates. Although it's only about 290 kilometers from Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark in North America, its nearest European lands are the Faroe Islands, over 420 kilometers away, and Jan Mayen Island, 570 kilometers away. Despite this, Iceland is usually grouped with Europe for historical, political, cultural, and linguistic reasons. Iceland covers about 103,000 square kilometers, but its population is only around 380,000 people. This gives Iceland a population density of just 3.68 people per square kilometer, making it the third most sparsely populated country in the world. Because it sits on a constantly active geological zone between North America and Europe, Iceland is a land of stark climatic and geographical contrasts. It's also known as one of the weirdest countries in the world, full of surprising and interesting facts. Let's dive into them with GeoVista in today's video. 1. The land of fire and ice. Estimates show that about 11% of this island nation is covered by glaciers, totaling around 11,330 square kilometers. The three largest glaciers are Vatnajökull, 7,900 square kilometers, Langjökull, 953 square kilometers, and Hofsjökull, 925 square kilometers. However, due to climate change, Iceland's glaciers are melting faster than they can recover in winter, contributing to rising sea levels. Data from the Icelandic Meteorological Office in 2017 indicated that out of the country's 300 named glaciers, 56 have completely disappeared. Whenever a glacier is lost, the locals hold a special funeral for it, as a way to remember the benefits it provided. Besides storing water, glaciers create stunning natural wonders, including lagoons, waterfalls, and especially crystal-clear ice caves. Iceland's Vatnajökull Glacier is currently the largest in Europe and the third largest in the world. Hidden beneath this glacier is a cave of the same name, known as the largest natural ice cave in Iceland, over 100 meters deep and surrounded by undulating ice walls. Vatnajökull is also a major tourist attraction, overwhelming visitors with its freezing temperatures and incredibly surreal beauty. Despite having so many glaciers, because it sits on the Atlantic volcanic belt, Iceland is also one of the most geologically active places on Earth, with numerous volcanoes, hot springs, and vast geothermal resources. That's why it's famously nicknamed the Land of Fire and Ice, and has been chosen as a natural backdrop for many blockbuster movies like Thor, The Dark World, and Star Wars. There are currently about 200 volcanoes in Iceland, and most are still active. Iceland's highest point is Vatnajökull Peak, standing at 2,110 meters above sea level. This peak is part of the ice-covered Öræfajökull volcano within Vatnajökull National Park. Iceland's volcanoes not only provide an abundant and cheap source of electricity, but also yield fertile basalt soil for agriculture. However, residents also have to live with the reality of volcanic eruptions, which can cause significant damage. For instance, the eruption of the Laki volcano in 1783 to 1784 is considered one of the most devastating volcanic disasters in human history. It spewed lava and toxic gases for 8 months, directly leading to the deaths of over 50% of Iceland's population at the time. The Laki eruption and its aftermath also caused a global drop in temperatures, and 120 million tons of sulfur dioxide released into the atmosphere led to crop failures in Europe and droughts in North Africa. 2. Strange natural phenomena. Being close to the Arctic Circle gives Iceland a cold, temperate maritime climate, but its location in the middle of the Atlantic makes it warmer than other places at the same latitude. This is partly due to the Gulf Stream current flowing along Iceland's southwest and south coasts, bringing warmth from the Caribbean. The mix of mild Atlantic air and cold Arctic air also causes sudden weather changes in this land of fire and ice. In winter, the southern lowlands average 0 degrees Celsius, while the northern average is around -10 degrees Celsius. The central highlands are extremely cold, with the lowest temperature ever recorded being -38 degrees Celsius on January 22, 1918. Snow typically falls from October to April, with the heaviest snowfall in December and January. Winter is the ideal time to witness the northern lights, aurora borealis, in Iceland, especially from November to March, as nights are longer than days during this period. The best places to enjoy these unique light displays are the outskirts of Reykjavik, a city known for its colorful houses, unique architecture, and vibrant nightlife. When summer arrives, Iceland's climate becomes much warmer, with average temperatures ranging from 15 degrees Celsius to 20 degrees Celsius. This is also the time when days are longer than nights. From mid to late June, the sun can shine for about 20 to 24 hours a day. This phenomenon is often called the midnight sun. It paints an incredible picture across the night sky of this remote island nation with various colors like red, yellow, orange, pink, and purple. This is a source of pride for Icelanders, who consider it a priceless gift from nature. So, on these white nights, almost everyone, from the elderly to children, stays up until the next morning to celebrate and hold traditional folk festivals. One such festival is Jónsmessuhátíð, also called Midsummer Night, usually held on June 24th each year, when the sun doesn't set for 24 hours. According to local culture, this night is considered one of the most magical nights in Iceland. It's believed that cows can talk and seals can turn into humans. They also celebrate in a very special way, by taking off all their clothes and rolling naked in the dew-covered grass, hoping to cure any ailments they might have. 3. World leader in renewable energy. Thanks to possessing hundreds of volcanoes and glaciers, along with 600 hot springs and 20 high-temperature steam fields, 150 to 250 degrees Celsius, 85% of Iceland's total primary energy supply now comes from domestically produced renewable sources. Geothermal energy provides 65%, and hydropower provides 20%. Fossil fuels account for the remaining 15%, mainly used for transportation and fishing vessels. However, a 2020 report from the University of Iceland stated that the country is striving to switch from oil to hydrogen energy by 2040 and also aims for carbon neutrality this year, or specify the year. The use of abundant hydropower and geothermal resources has made Iceland the world's largest electricity producer per capita. In 2016, the Global Green Economy Index ranked it among the top 10 greenest economies in the world. Although Icelanders have used geothermal energy since the Viking Age, initially for washing clothes and bathing, it wasn't fully utilized for a long time. Achieving today's results required a concerted effort from both the government and the people. Like Japan, Iceland has very few fossil fuel resources, so in the past, it imported so much fuel that over half the energy used for heating came from oil. Consequently, the 1973 oil crisis hit Iceland hard. This wake-up call prompted the government to shift focus to domestic energy production and develop geothermal and hydropower. Iceland provided financial support for companies exploring geothermal potential and encouraged citizens to reduce their use of diesel-powered equipment. Since then, Iceland has significantly increased its energy independence. Its largest hydropower plant is Karahanjúkar, 690 megawatt capacity, operational since 2009, and its largest geothermal plant is Hellisheidi, 303 megawatt electricity capacity and 400 megawatt thermal capacity. 4. Small nation, developed economy. Despite its small population, Iceland is a prime example of the phrase small but mighty. It boasts one of the world's most prosperous economies, with a 2022 GDP of $27.7 billion and a per capita income of $72,894, consistently ranking among the top 10 highest-income countries globally. However, Iceland's path to wealth hasn't been smooth. Although established as an independent republic nearly 80 years ago, after gaining independence from Denmark in 1944, the island was discovered over 1,000 years ago and settled by Norse sailors and explorers. Seafaring has arguably been in the Icelanders' blood. Even after becoming an independent republic, its economy primarily relied on fishing, which accounted for about 90% of Iceland's export revenue in the 1960s. But over time, fish catches gradually declined, and export prices remained low, diminishing the industry's importance. By 2006, it only accounted for 40% of the country's export revenue. In the early 21st century, Iceland became a poster child for the global credit boom. Its banks expanded significantly overseas, and large amounts of foreign currency flowed into the island nation, fueling strong economic growth. But heavy reliance on the banking sector caused its economy to nearly collapse during the 2008 global financial crisis. Subsequently, thousands of people left the country, mainly moving to Norway. After this shock, Iceland began to seriously diversify its economy, prioritizing other sectors like software development, biotechnology, industry, and tourism. Agriculture accounts for only about 5.4% of GDP, with main products being potatoes, greenhouse vegetables, lamb, and dairy products. With its abundant electrical energy, Iceland quickly achieved success in manufacturing and industry, especially aluminum smelting, becoming the world's 11th largest aluminum producer in 2019, with over 850,000 tons per year. Since 2010, tourism has also become a major pillar of Iceland's economic growth. In 2019, the number of international visitors reached 2.2 million, nearly 6 times the country's entire population. 5. The mosquito-free nation. Everyone knows mosquitoes are among the most dangerous creatures on Earth. They transmit numerous diseases and are responsible for about 830,000 deaths annually in Africa, South America, Central America, Mexico, and most of Asia. Mosquitoes can adapt to various environments, even Antarctica, the coldest place on Earth, but not Iceland. It's the only country in the world that claims to have no mosquitoes, even though these insects are found in neighboring lands like Greenland, Norway, and Denmark. Researchers suggest the reason is that Iceland lacks the shallow ponds necessary for mosquitoes to lay eggs and for larvae to develop. Additionally, Iceland experiences 3 major freezes each year, and its climate changes constantly. Winters can be freezing, but can also warm up suddenly, melting snow, only to freeze again shortly after. This prevents mosquitoes from completing their life cycle and reproducing. Interestingly, Iceland still preserves one mosquito specimen, currently displayed at the National Museum of Natural History. It was caught by biologist Gisli Mar Gislason on a plane arriving from Greenland in 1980. 6. The country with no army. After gaining independence in 1944, Iceland joined NATO on March 30, 1949, as one of its founding members. However, this move wasn't universally supported, and Iceland is the only country where riots occurred in the capital on the day Parliament voted to join NATO. Opponents argued it would undermine the country's peaceful traditions and affect its language and cultural identity. Despite internal conflicts, Iceland has consistently contributed as a valuable NATO member, even though it's the only member without a standing army. As a founding member and party to a bilateral defense agreement with the United States, Iceland has repeatedly provided infrastructure and land for NATO operations as an alternative to military contributions. Furthermore, controlling the seas around Iceland, the only route from the Atlantic to the Arctic Ocean, has long been vital for North Atlantic security. making the country a crucial member even without a large military presence. However, Iceland does maintain a coast guard of about 200 personnel responsible for search and rescue, maritime safety, and national security surveillance. There's also the Crisis Response Unit, a paramilitary unit of about 200 people participating in peacekeeping operations and projects, including supporting NATO activities. According to the Global Peace Index in 2011, update year if needed, Iceland was ranked the most peaceful country in the world due to its lack of armed forces, low crime rate, and high level of political and social stability. It even holds a Guinness World Record for the lowest military expenditure. 7. A paradise for women. For over a decade, Iceland has topped the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index rankings based on criteria like health, education, economy, and politics. As a result, Icelandic women currently live in the most gender-equal environment on the planet. In 2018, 88% of working-age women were employed, 65% of university students were female, and 41% of parliament members were women. Iceland was the first country in the world to elect a female president, Vigdís Finnbogadóttir, in 1980. It was also the first country with an openly gay female head of government, Jóhanna Sigurdardóttir, elected prime minister in 2009. Although the average female wage is still lower, around 72% of male wages, the gender pay gap is narrowing and projected to reach parity by 2068, update year if needed. The country has numerous laws protecting women. For example, in 2009, Iceland became the first country to ban strip clubs on feminist grounds, stating it would never accept women being treated as commodities. Additionally, after the shocking corruption and financial collapse in 2008, the government made efforts to bring more women into positions of power in companies. Specifically, laws mandate that corporate boards must have at least 40% female members, and any company with 25 or more employees must have a gender equality program with targets reviewed every 3 years. Furthermore, Iceland allows fathers paid paternity leave to share childcare duties, support their partners, and ensure all Icelandic children grow up with equal care from both parents. 8. The anti-incest app. Out of the 380,000 people in Iceland, about 320,000 live in or around the capital, Reykjavik. With a small population concentrated in a small area, and being a very homogeneous country with low immigration rates, it's not surprising that most Icelanders are related to each other and not always closely enough to recognize their relatives. Moreover, Icelandic naming conventions are unique and don't reflect connections across generations. A newborn baby's last name is derived from the father's or mother's first name, with the suffix dóttir for daughters and son for sons. This means generations within an Icelandic family rarely share the same surname, making it impossible to guess kinship based on names. Also, first names must be chosen from thousands of pre-approved names listed by the Icelandic Naming Committee. If you want a completely new name for your child, you have to register it with the committee to determine if it fits the country's language and culture. Faced with this situation, a research group created an app called Íslendinga app, also known by the intriguing nickname the anti-incest app. It uses resources from Íslendingabók, the Book of Icelanders, a database recording the genealogy of almost everyone who has lived in Iceland for the past 1,200 years. As of February 2020, it held information on 904,000 individuals, estimated to be half the total population since settlement in the 9th century. Each person's record contains information on parents, siblings, spouses, children, dates of birth and death, place of birth, and burial location. The key feature is that when two people using the app meet, they can simply bump their phones together, and it will sound an incest alarm if they share a recent common ancestor. Within days of its launch in 2013, Íslendinga app had nearly 500,000 downloads and a 4.6 out of 5-star rating, proving it met a real need for Icelanders. One user even commented, "If I'd gotten this earlier, maybe I wouldn't have slept with my cousin." 9. The only place to swim between two tectonic plates. Silfra is a fissure formed between the North American and Eurasian plates, located within Iceland's Thingvellir National Park. The park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and was the location of Iceland's first parliament, the Alþingi. Silfra is part of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the longest mountain range in the world, though most of it lies beneath the Atlantic Ocean. The fissure itself formed in 1789 due to earthquakes accompanying the divergent movement of the two tectonic plates. Silfra is now famous because it's the only place on Earth where visitors can dive or snorkel between two tectonic plates, literally between the continents of Europe and North America. Although many people swim and dive in the Silfra fissure, few dare to venture deep into the Silfra cave system, which reaches depths of at least 63 meters, because the passages are narrow and the rock structures are quite loose and could collapse upon impact. According to researchers, the Silfra fissure widens by about 2 centimeters each year as the continents drift further apart. The water here is so clear that you can drink it directly and see down over 100 meters. It's considered to have the clearest water in the world. The reason for this purity is that Silfra is fed by underground meltwater from the nearby Langjökull glacier, which has been filtered through porous basalt lava rock. But because it originates from a glacier, the water is extremely cold, hovering between 0 degrees Celsius and 1.6 degrees Celsius year-round. 10. The country that banned beer for 74 years. In a 1908 referendum, Icelanders voted to ban all alcoholic beverages, citing health concerns and rising alcoholism among men. The ban was passed by the government and took effect on June 1, 1915. However, it was partially lifted in 1921 due to a trade dispute with Spain and Portugal, who threatened to stop importing Icelandic salted cod unless Iceland imported their wines. In the following years, Icelanders increasingly recognized the need for alcohol for emotional release. So, 57.7% of voters approved lifting the ban in a 1933 referendum. However, beers containing more than 2.25% alcohol by volume remained prohibited. Those who craved stronger beers resorted to homebrewing or smuggling it from abroad. It wasn't until March 1, 1989, that all restrictions on alcohol in Iceland were completely lifted. Immediately, all the bars in Reykjavik were packed with people buying beer to toast this newfound freedom. Since then, March 1st is celebrated annually as Beer Day, Bjordagur, in Iceland, attracting thousands of participants. And those are 10 fascinating facts about Iceland. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos.